just
Yeah, to record.
be involved in all the minute decisions of the project, and that there becomes a lot of back and forth communications, like nitpicking the different options, or can we do that option, but can we do this thing? And in my experience, like that is just opening the floodgates for like a very tiresome back and forth communication between you and the client. Um, in my experience, like I actually feel like the better, the smoother and better delivered project comes when the client actually just kind of says, "Oh, you're the expert. Like, tell me what makes the most sense with my budget." So we get budgets from people, and if they are not really satisfied with like what we're doing with that budget, then we can like amend. But a lot of times we will say like, "Oh, well, here's your design. Like to install this design, we're looking at, between 20 and $30,000." And because you already have a design you're working off, right?
Yep, already got the design. A
And do
good
they
friend of
have a
mine's been in.
budget that they've given you for what they're willing to invest?
So I did my first site walk with them after two phone conversations. I did the first site walk Monday,
Cool.
and one of the last parts of business that we took care of while I did the site walk was, okay, this is what I have to know. This
Yeah.
is this is the only gray area part right here, and other than that, we just need to make sure that we do this, all up front now. Make the planning, make the management overview, all that stuff now, so we're clear and I can run. I don't need to be zigzagging all the way through the project. So
Hmm.
that's where you lose the money, huh? The back and forth.
Oh my gosh. You lose your mind is what you lose. Like all of this stuff, I don't know if you have been paid anything by this client yet. Have you been paid
No,
anything? So
no.
you've already got two phone conversations invested. You've already got a site walk invested, and then you're gonna, spend what is usually going to be a long time, like dicing up these three different options. Then they're going to get back to you. Then there's going to be a back and forth. By the time you have any money from them, you could have invested a number of hours, and at any point they can just walk away.
Hmm.
Um, right? I
So
mean,
well said. Yeah, of course.
this happens to me all the time. They're like, "Hey, we love what you're doing, but our AC went out and it's going to cost us $8,000 to replace our air conditioning for our house, and we have to put this on hold till next year." I can't tell you how common that is. So my whole philosophy in my experience doing this is all about creating what I call like a frictionless communication with them. I want to talk to the client in that first conversation, like, what are your highest priorities? If your highest priorities are like, I want a vegetable garden, and that's like my number one thing. I want to be growing vegetables with my kids. And then there's all these other things. Okay, well, let's start. Like, you got a $20,000 budget. The vegetable garden is going to be 10. And then you're going to like use your best discretion because you're the trusted expert in their eyes of like where can you allocate the best use of funds. It might be like, oh, I see in the design that there's like all this, edging around your in-ground beds. Like, we could scrap that, do that in phase two, because that's like $4,000 worth of edging, with the labor. And let me tell you how you can make the most of this 20 grand that you're willing to invest so that you can hit as many of your phase one goals as possible. Present that to them. Then you can say, do you have any feedback? Sometimes they might have feedback, and they might say, oh, I feel like this garden is more expensive than I was wanting to pay. What is there anything that you can think of? And then you might say, well, right now your garden beds are 18 inches tall. Like, we could make them 12 inches tall, and then that would reduce a lot of lumber and soil cost, and you'd still be able to grow, just as productive of a garden. You might say, hey, all of the flowers that are growing around your fruit trees, those could be a phase two. Why don't we just do like we'll plant all the fruit trees, we'll, use some cardboard and mulch around the fruit trees to kill off the grass, but then, you can call us a year later and we'll come plant all those flowers and herbs to fill in your landscape. But like give them the kind of like here's the phase one that meets your highest goals and your budget.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, if I know exactly what the budget is, I shouldn't make three different quotes for that one budget. Be
Uh,
clear be clear with one plan, one design. And if they want to modify certain parts of it or have some feedback of it, then we decide to do that right from the beginning. And that way there's no questions and no confusion. That makes a lot of sense. Boy,
yeah.
when I buy, can you tell the way I do things when I buy stuff from people?
The thing about the food forest stuff, right, is that people have no clue. They're not going in to buy a TV and they've spent their life watching TV and talking to their friends about which TV they have, and they know what kind of connections are needed for a TV. Like people are generally clueless. And so you open up this can of worms by presenting all these options because then it creates more questions than answers for them.
Gotcha.
That's been my experience, at least.